It is claimed that an important advance in the knowledge of human anatomy and physiology was made by Ibn al-Nafis, but whether this was discovered via human dissection is doubtful because al-Nafis tells us that he avoided the practice of dissection because of the Sharia and his own compassion for the human body. The movement of blood through the human body was thought to be known due to the work of the Greek physicians. However, there was the question of how the blood flowed from the right ventricle of the heart to the left ventricle before the blood is pumped to the rest of the body. According to the Galen, in the 2nd century, blood reached the left ventricle through invisible passages in the septum. By some means, Ibn al-Nafis, a 13th century Syrian physician, found the previous statement on blood flow from the right ventricle to the left to the false. Ibn al-Nafis discovered that the ventricular septum was impenetrable, lacking any type of invisible passages, showing Galen's assumptions to be false. Ibn al-Nafis discovered that the blood in the right ventricle of the heart is instead carried to the left by way of the lungs. This discovery was one of the first descriptions of the pulmonary circulation, although his writings on the subject were only rediscovered in the 20th century, and it was William Harvey's later independent discovery which brought it to general attention. According to the ancient Greeks, vision was thought to a visual spirit emanating from the eyes that allowed an object to be perceived. The 11th century Iraqi scientist Ibn al-Haytham, also known as Al-Hazen in Latin, developed a radically new concept of human vision. Ibn al-Haytham book, a straightforward approach towards vision by explaining that the eye was an optical instrument. The description on the anatomy of the eye led him to form the basis for his theory of image formation, which is explained through the reflection of light rays passing between two media of different densities. Ibn al-Haytham developed this new theory on vision from experimental investigations. In the 12th century, his book of optics was translated into Latin and continued to be studied both in the Islamic world and in Europe until the 17th century. Ahmed ibn Abi al-Ashad, a famous physician from Mosul, Iraq, described the physiology of the stomach in a live lion on his book Al-Quwadi wal Muqtadi. He wrote, "When food enters the stomach, especially when it is plentiful, the stomach dilates and its layers get stretched. Onlookers thought the stomach was rather small, so I proceeded to pour jug after jug in its throat. The inner layer of the distended stomach became as smooth as the external peritoneal layer. I then cut open the stomach and let the water out. The stomach shrank and I could see the pylorus." Ahmed ibn Abi al-Ashad observed the physiology of the stomach in a live lion in 1959. This description preceded William Beaumont by almost 900 years, making Ahmed ibn al-Ashad, the first person to initiate experimental events in gastric physiology. According to Galen, in his work entitled De Ossibus ad Tyrons, the lower jaw consists of two parts, proven by the fact that it disintegrates in the middle when cooked. Abdul Latif al-Baghdadi, while on a visit to Egypt, encountered many skeletal remains of those who had died from starvation near Cairo. He examined the skeletons and established that the mandible consists of the one piece, not two as Galen had taught. He wrote in his work, Book of Instruction and Admonition on the Things Seen and Events Recorded in the Land of Egypt. All anatomists agree upon that the bone of the lower jaw consists of two parts joined together at the shin. The inspection of this part of the corpses convinced me that the bone of the lower jaw is all one, with no joint nor shutter. I have repeated the observation a great number of times in over 200 heads. I have been assisted by various different people who have repeated the same examination both in my absence and under my eyes. Abdul Latif al-Baghdadi, relation from Egypt. Al-Baghdadi discovery did not gain much attention from his contemporaries because the information is rather hidden within the detailed account of the geography, botany, monuments of Egypt, as well as of the famine and its consequences. He never published his anatomical observations in a separate book as had been his intention.